Good evening. This is the March 11th meeting of the Zoning Subcommittee. Madam Clerk, want to call the roll?
Roll call of the members of the Zoning Subcommittee. Councilor Janino. Here. Councilor Keefe.
Here.
Here. Councilor Novoselsky.
Here.
Here. Councilor Rizzo is absent. And Chairman Zambudo.
Here.
Here. Quorum is present. First item on the agenda is 19017, an ordinance further amending the zoning ordinances of the City of Revere relative to a 9-month moratorium on the granting of special permits for lodging and rooming houses.
Okay, I think we're going to keep this in committee because it never came out of the planning board. So we'll hold this in committee until we get their report, and so we'll take it up at the next meeting.
Second item on the agenda is Council Order 19-041, James George, on behalf of Extenet Systems and AT&T Wireless, requesting permission from the Revere City Council to install small cell wireless equipment on an existing National Grid wood utility distribution pole at the corner of 116 State Road and 4 Unity Ave.
Mr. George.
Good afternoon. For the record, Jim George, permitting manager for Extenet Systems on behalf of AT&T Wireless. The reason for the inquiry today, or the application today, is we are seeking to put a small cell antenna node on top of an existing wood utility pole owned by Eversource at the location in the Beachmont area. The physical address, the closest physical address is 116 116 State Road, where Unity Avenue goes up the hill. This particular area is known to have very bad cellular coverage, not only because of the Beachmont MBTA and the high capacity, but that hill that goes in the back. I remember when I was at T-Mobile, I tried to do something on the roof, and it just never got done. So this area is notorious for needing cell. The small cell application here, I think, will assist greatly to solve that problem. It's going to, the propagation is 4 to 5 city blocks. It's going to get right into the T station as people come out, and also get up as far as it can on the hill and up and down State Road. It'll also get over towards that corner of Suffolk Downs, and then we will probably do more as we extend into the Suffolk Down area. Now, to directly address a question for radio frequency concerns that was brought up by Councilor McKenna, each site, I have the MPE report. MPE is maximum permissible exposure. It's run on each particular node that we do, and it's run cumulative. So each node that AT&T has in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, they regionalize it by county, I think, and by towns, and they run a report. This particular node, each node, generally speaking, or the ones on this list that I have generated a report, is the same antenna group, the same Galvanics antenna, so they're all going to propagate the same. Let me speak specifically on this particular node and how it fits and complies with the FCC maximum permissible exposure. I'm going to say MPE from now on. Generally speaking, I'm not an RF engineer, but I've done quite a few of these. I am managing the Boston build out for AT&T and others. We're putting these things basically every 150 feet. It's set up as a grid, and there's just an awful lot of small cell nodes going on in Boston. Now, Revere has not been hit that bad yet. I've got a few more coming in, and probably a few more coming in after that. And my colleagues and brothers and sisters will have some more coming in. But specifically, this is generally how it works. Each node they do a report, radio frequency engineers. This MPE, according to the FCC standards, is broken into 2 classifications. This won't take very long. This is just my layman's explanation. I think you'll be educated a little bit. 2 classifications of exposure. Occupational, which is the guys that are climbing the pole, the National Grid guys, the Eversource guys, that get up the pole and work it, okay. The second one is the general population, the people that walk back and forth on the street, 35 feet beneath it, and also the people that live in the general area. That's the general population. controlled and uncontrolled environments. It's basically an uncontrolled environment because people pass and repass. They go under it. They go their way. They travel beneath it in a car. So they classify it in two different ways: occupational and general population. With that said, they do it on a worst-case scenario. Now, what that means is they take the antenna spec sheets, right, and they know what it's going to propagate. Each antenna is guided by the FCC requirements on how much they can propagate and what power level they use. Very low power level. So, worst-case scenario is to create this report. They take each antenna and they essentially turn it up all they can. There's 3 antennas in this tube, each one of them pointing in a different direction. That tube that we showed you before, you all saw it. It's just a tube. Okay, they crammed 3 tiny antennas in there, and they attach them to a pole, and they put that tube around it. So each antenna is going in a different direction. They're tiny. They're not that big. So they base it on a worst-case scenario. Turn every one of them all the way up. There are no modeled exposures on any accessible ground working surface related to Extenet's proposed antennas and the general population exposure limits to the site. There are no areas extending beyond the antenna radome that may exceed the FCC's occupational or general population limits for exposure to radio frequency emissions. Let me take that down one more level. The closest structure, they're calling it 35 feet from the utility pole, give or take. They've got those, you've got some stores there, you've got some houses there. Generally speaking, 35 feet is from the top of the pole to the sidewalk, and they'll do 35 feet to the nearest house. Window, your bedroom window. There are no areas at this building that exceed either the FCC's occupational or general population limit. The closest structure to the antenna and the largest calculated value from this facility is 0.012% of the FCC's occupational limit and 0.060% of the general population limit. Less than 1/4% is what this thing propagates based on the limit that the FCC gives you to have safety. So it's less than 1/4%. It really is just a poof. It's a poof that propagates out. It keeps propagating. It's continuous, it's perpetual, as long as it's turned on. But what comes out of it generally only goes 3 blocks, and then it fizzes out, and then there's no more. Then you got to go to the next one that comes into it. So if you're standing 35 feet from this thing, you are at a level that is less than 1/4%, 0.012 and 0.0060. Now, they keep saying that number as it relates to limits. They do a lot of graphs, they do a lot of analysis, and they turn it up all the way, and they do the worst-case scenario. So I like to explain it in that way. This is very technical. It's like a 17-page report. They go into radomes and stuff like that. It's public record. I've provided it to Councilor McKenna. I'll give the hard copy to Ashley, and anybody can come in and take a look at it. But the FCC requires not only the manufacturer of the antenna, but the carrier itself, in order to maintain their licenses, to comply with this restriction of how much you can turn it up. One of the main reasons why small cell is advancing so quickly and aggressively, I'm going to say 65 to 70% of the budgets of most carriers in 2019 are going towards small cell, is because whatever's on the roof and whatever's on the towers, they can't turn them up anymore. They've upgraded to 2G, 3G, 4G, whatever they're going to do, bigger antennas, but they cannot turn them up anymore in order to advance further into neighborhoods. So they got to get down into the streets and do little piffs all along the way. This is going to continue to advance in Revere. I've done an awful lot of work in Lynn, Salem, Chelsea. Revere is on its way. For not only the wood poles, but replacement of city-owned poles and up and down Broadway. I know it's coming, but this one was hot on my client's radar, along with yours over there on South Furness, because it was deemed by radio frequency engineers to be a high value. So that is what I seek today. Do you have any questions of me of this?
Before I start calling on my colleagues, you're going to submit that report to the city clerk, is
Yes.
that correct? Okay. In the future, if you're going to submit anything to one of the committee members, see that the chairman and the city clerk also receive that.
Yes.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of questions. So I did some research, too.
Yeah.
First of all, I would like to know if it's a 4G or a 5G antenna.
That's kind of a tough question. I think my answer is 5G.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So what I got, I probably looked at this for about an hour.
Yeah.
And looked at different websites. First of all, they say that the FCC has, their standards are, they're not great. I'm sorry, I can't get it out. But they're saying that, they're 1,000 times higher than what triggers diseases. So that's one thing that I'm concerned about. They're talking about, it says, serious adverse health and environmental effects that may be caused by exposure to microwave radiation emitted by small cell facilities for 4G and 5G technology. So if you're saying that you're putting a 5G antenna on a 35-foot pole, that concerns me. It also concerns me that it says from the internet that people within 1,500 feet of this micro tower experiences blood abnormalities, depression, high rates of suicide, and all kinds of illnesses called cancer.
Councilor, if I can stop you for a second.
Sure.
And then you can continue as long as you want. I'm going to need to know what you're citing. You're talking about the internet. I want to know the specific reports these are coming from, and they're not just pie in the sky from somebody making these things up. So I'm sure you've checked credible sources, and I'll need to know what they are. Thank you.
So I don't know if you were here last week, but when I was talking, but I had multiple people call me to say that these antennas are giving off cancer. They're not microwave radiation, and they're not healthy. And they're not healthy in a dense community like Revere. So, and listen, my house does not have cell service. I have to stand in the middle of a floor to hear people. So I would love this, because it would be beneficial for me. But if people my residents, my constituents are calling me or emailing me and say, please study the facts. Please study the facts on the health issues that these antennas are giving off, then I can't sit idle and say, well, I want the cell service because I want my phone so I can hear it. I have to do the studies and say, okay, let me see what the concerns are. So I did a little bit of homework, and I find that, it might be new, the health effects of this might be new, and they don't have a lot of information on it, but what I got off the internet was it gives off microwave radiation. And I know we have microwaves in our house, but and they're saying that people shouldn't even be within 1,500 feet of this because it causes all this stuff. So that's just my concern. I don't know what my colleagues want to say about this, but I think there are other methods to go. The Xfinity, the cable, what I heard, that are more cost-effective, but they're more costly, but the cables don't give out any health risks. That's what I heard. So, I might have my information wrong, but when my constituents are calling me and saying, please, will you do your research about the health because these are not good for the city, then that's what I've done. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to bring a few points up. Since the last time you were here in December, obviously we've, as a council, have gotten a number of concerned calls and emails from residents, but it's also piqued our interest to do a lot of research. And like Council McKenna, I have, searched the internet and also talked to as many professionals as I could. I don't have anything to quote because, like anything, you get conflicting information, and sometimes they can contradict each other. But just recently, I spoke to, and we have some firemen here today from Central Fire who had some serious concerns, and they've brought a lot of research and knowledge to the table to me, and it gave me a lot of pause. I'm not an expert in 5G, 4G, or any G when it comes to telecommunications. I thought these things could be a benefit to people wanting to use their have cell service. But when you start getting, serious inquiries when it comes to significant health risks, it makes me pause and say, I want to have experts helping me out making these decisions. I don't want to put anyone at risk. If it means that I have poor cell service, I'm okay with that. So I'd ask that we offered some time to the gentleman, Mr. O'Hara from the fire department, to speak of his mind and talk to him, to tell us what you told me. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. We're going to allow the firemen to give us their input, but all I'm going to say is that I want input from everyone. I want documentation as to where it's coming from, because I can go on the internet and find out that I'm going to live to be 120 tomorrow. So I want actual data. I want proof that there's something wrong here, because I've been here a long time, as we all know, and I don't like to keep saying that because maybe people won't want to keep me here. But the bottom line is that I've seen a lot of documentation from when cell service was in its infancy. And we've had lots of reports telling us how safe they are. So now if something's changed, I'll be the first to want to stop it if that's what happened. But I don't want to hear that we saw this on the internet. I want to hear that it came from some scientific organization that has backup proof of what they're saying, and not somebody's emotional worry about getting cancer, as we do in a lot of other issues. I'm not going to bring those up here tonight, but we know what we're talking about. So we deal with facts and science up here, and we're going to continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you,
Councilor Janino. I almost said Council President, but I forgot your term is expired.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also did a little bit of research on this after the last meeting. I've got multiple calls and emails regarding the topic. And of course, no one wants to do anything that could be a potential health hazard to our residents. That's the last thing any of us up here want. However, there are multiple sides to this, right? So you hear about it first and it's like, all right, well, we want to provide our residents with the best service possible. Something we need to think about is the technology for these towers have changed drastically over the past 20 years. From, the first cell phone tower to now we're 5G speeds. We have more people using different types of technology, whether it be for a phone, a laptop, wireless, anything you name it. So the strengths of these are increasing. So if there were studies done 20 years ago about what the implications are, I'm sure they're very different now because the strengths have changed so dramatically. I will caution my colleagues, although, I've got just as many concerns, we're very limited as a council as to what we can do on this. And according to the FCC, Section 332, Article 7, it prevents cities and local government from discriminating against these carriers. So although we can say, yes, they must come before us for a special permit, or yes, we can set these controls, unfortunately, there's not much we can do to say no. If we vote it down, they can go to court, sue the city, we're going to lose. So it's like a no-win, no-win. You can be against it, but still legally we have to support it, which is not a comfortable position for me, and I'm sure many of my colleagues. I want to know more about it, and if you do a little bit of research, a lot of other communities are pumping the brakes on this because they're seeing, okay, now some things are coming out, studies are being done. It goes from being a rush to let's be the most technology forward and progressive city to, all right, hold on, why don't we look at what we're doing and see what the effects of it are? And I think that we should just proceed with caution, although I will, again, caution my colleagues that we are very limited in terms of what we actually can do. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Janino. And I found out what we can and can't do also when it came to these people offer a fee, but there's a big carrier that doesn't, and they're within their rights legally not to. And I wasn't happy to hear that. So, okay. Councilor Rizzo, you have anything for this? No. Okay. Now we'll hear from the firefighters. Before I get you started, anything you talk about, I'd like.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I just, so I have everything.
Okay,
I
so
want every side.
So I'm Lieutenant O'Hara with Revere Fire Department. I'm the president of Local 926, Revere Firefighters Union. So the reason why I get all my information is because as of last August at the IFF convention in Seattle for firefighters, they discussed cell phone towers on top of fire stations. So as I started looking into it a little more, we have one on top of our station. It was installed in 2008. And we knew nothing about that when they installed these towers. When they first went up, they were 2Gs. So as I was sitting there listening at the conference, they explained of the issues that they were having with the amount of radiation causing on these towers going right through the station and beyond the station. So I started calling, making some phone calls. The guy named Frank Lima out there, he's his district VP out in California. He represents the country. Vice president on a quarter of certain states out in California. So as they just started throwing them up on fire stations. And as they got thrown up on fire stations, they increased it to 4G. They had the levels tested, radiation through the roof, going down to the firefighters. So not only did they go out the door to get exposed, cancer exposure, they came back into the station for downtime and they're getting exposed to cancer. So I started looking to our tower. I called T-Mobile up. T-Mobile, we emailed them. They weren't the best to email with. We asked them right away if they're 4G, 5G, and the only answer he came back with was, why, who's going up there? So right away I knew something was wrong. So I had him come out and test it out. The mayor was on board with it. He wants to find out what's going on with it because he says that he's very concerned. He doesn't want to see us affected by any of this. So they came out and tested it out. We asked them to come during the peak hours of the city. They came at 10 a.m., not 5:30. Because at 5:30 in Revere, it takes you about 40 minutes to get from Beachmont to North Revere if you go, the major streets. So as he did the 10 a.m. exposure checks, they came very close to FCC regulations, which the FCC just came out with certain regulations. Now, on those regulations, if you go upstairs inside the fire department, as soon as you get to this top level, which nobody goes up there, the first sign that says is FCC doesn't approve beyond this point, a sign. And I have that right on my cell phone. I could show you guys all. You go beyond further, you get closer to the tower, it tells you to get out of this area. So that's what we've been dealing with since 2008, and we had no idea. I think back then it was tough times. They came to the city. It was a way to make money, and no one knew. And also another point, on cell phone towers in the state of Massachusetts, New England area, Virginia, and New York, we're the only station that has it. The only one. So we're going right now to get that removed. We're working with the mayor, and it's tough. Once these companies put these towers up, you got a contract with them, they got more power over you. So luckily I was here 2 weeks ago, spent a couple hours in City Hall, worked with Ashley, worked with the solicitors, and we found out the contract terminates April 30th. He had 60 days to respond. I got here on the 61st day. We sent that, the mayor signed it, the chief signed off on it, we terminated the contract. So now we're going forward to remove it. So now as I looked into all this, I was working with Frank Lima out of California, and he's explained to me the issues they're having with telephone poles and 5G. 4G is a problem, but 5G is out of control. The radiation that goes right into houses. Now, I know the city of Revere can give a special permit for 5G, and I just talked to solicitors, but you can also, once you give the special permit, you could also deny putting it up there. So that's, you may want to talk to the solicitors about that. So I started doing some homework on 5Gs. Now, in the state of California, they went to state legislation and they passed a bill, no cell phone towers on fire stations and schools. That's in the state of California. So far, they're the only state that declined that. So you can't put any tower up there in those areas. Now, going on to 5G with telephone poles. World Health Organization, and the U.S. National Toxicology Program. The harmful effects are cancer, genetic damage, cardiovascular problems, abnormal brain function, impaired fertility, headaches, insomnia, concussions, and weaknesses. Now, also, I know the FCC, I heard that there's, I don't know, I got to get some homework on this, but I did go onto the FCC's website, and there are no federal standards for microwave radiation exposure. And Mr. George, don't take this personally, I know you're here for business, so don't take it personally, but the only thing I didn't hear up here when he was up here was the word safe. Why not? And that's what concerns me. Right now, we have 5 towers in this city with 5G on it. And those are going to homes. And I know I don't think anybody ever knew about this. No one ever went up and spoke about it because no one knew. I know they're all over Boston, but no one ever stood up and spoke. And this is the issue we're having. There's going to be radiation going right into homes. I know there's also 2 court cases, Kansas and Ohio. I was looking on the internet because I found out they were coming here today, and this is the first I ever heard about it. But I couldn't find it on the internet to get the court cases up here because I was at work, and I found it about 2:30 today. But I know there are cases out there that there were 5G installed in these states, and kids got cancer from it. And so they got some lawsuit going on. Now, with these cell phone companies, you know, they got millions of dollars. They're a big weapon to fight. And this is my personal opinion on it, but I know working with the California Vice President that they do donate to American Cancer Society. They donate these companies donate up to $500,000 a piece. And they got their own doctors that turn around and say, oh, this doesn't cause radiation, this doesn't cause that. They put it up on the cell phone tower in Revere, on Central Fire Station. They said it doesn't cause anything. The radiation goes through the roof right down to us. And I have the report on that. So I'm advising you guys all that this is what we're up against. I know there's another way. I know wireless is coming. I know they're trying to do things. But I believe that fiber optic cable isn't so severe. It may cost them a little more money or more work. I don't know. Like, I don't know the business on that. I'm not a professional. But I do know what's going on with these 5Gs. And we need to do something to stop allowing it on the telephone poles in this city because we're going to get affected. And if you guys have any more questions I could maybe help answer, I'll work with any of you councils. I'll be willing to help. Again, don't take it personal, but I know this is business, but our lives are at stake here, and that's my personal opinion on it. So,
Well, Lieutenant, I thank you for your information, and if you can provide me with any documentation, I would truly
Absolutely.
appreciate it. Just, do you have it already? Okay. Provide it to the
this
city
is like a
clerk.
last-minute thing that came up.
Yeah, no,
here.
no, that's fine. Just anything you have. We're going to continue this hearing to another
Yeah.
date, but I want everybody's input, and I want every piece of documentation I can get related to these things, because this is all brand new to me, that these things are
Yeah,
causing.
no one knows about it. No one knows.
Well, I mean,
And
we've had, for years, we've had people come up here, and a lot of people have asked for health issues. We've gotten all the paperwork, and many different organizations have proved to us that they were safe. Now, all of a sudden, they're not safe. Maybe it's the 5G, I don't know.
Yeah, back then 2G was it's not as powerful as 5G, and the reason why you got nothing on it is because they're all starting to come out
Okay.
now.
Well,
And it will be,
obviously, we don't want anybody to get sick from
I know
anything
you
we
don't.
do here at this council. But as my colleague, Councilor Janino said, that we are limited to some of the things, unless we have some good backup that we can fight it with, and that's what we would need. So I'd appreciate any bit of information you can get to us.
Yeah, sure. And also, if also look into working with the solicitors, because I'm pretty sure you can decline it. You give them a special permit to come here, but I know you can decline it.
Yeah,
I
well,
just spoke with them.
there's federal regulations that
Yeah,
overrule
and
some of that
they give
stuff.
them a special permit,
Yeah.
but not to put it up.
Okay.
You could decline it.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
input. Appreciate it. Anybody else in the audience want to speak? One minute. No? Okay. Mr. George? I don't want to get into a back and forth here, so, no, I'm
Thank
just,
you, Lieutenant.
I want as much documentation as you can get me. we've got a conflict here now, and I'm hearing all kinds of stuff. I want facts, and I want scientific facts. I want proof that these things are safe, or they're not gonna go up.
Mr. Chairman, I've been doing this for 2 decades. I have learned a long time ago not to get emotional about this type of.
I've been doing this for 2 decades, too, just so you know.
I'm not a bad guy. I appreciate the lieutenant's research. I appreciate everybody else's research, but I have a position on this. The industry, 5G is a standard. 2G was a standard. It's kind of a big, cute word, right? And this is just me talking. It's a big, cute word. It's not so much about turning things up. It's more of a standard to densify. With that said, these small cells are advancing based on FCC guidance of permissible use. They take into consideration what is already propagating around it, and they design antennas and put each carrier's feet to the fire on what they can and cannot do. I'm confident in a report that by radio frequency engineers and experts within my own industry that say to me, these small antennas are going to piff out 0.060% of the maximum permissible use, maximum permissible stuff that goes out of this. I've built an awful lot of these things. I've had this conversation with numerous city councils. To the point that was over there, the FCC guidance that goes all the way back to 1996 about the body itself, whether it be grant a location, special permit, city council, the jurisdictional body that denies the application. You can't deny it for health reasons. You can't, if I have proven to you through whatever reporting I have, even experts that'll come in if that's what you choose, if the industry is saying that it meets the standards of the federal government, the FCC, regardless of what you may not think of Big Brother, if the denial is based specifically on health concerns, there is a long list of 2 decades worth of litigation against that. So that's not where I want to go with this. What I want to try to do is it is not recommended that the signage, there's going to be signage on this pole that's all the way up underneath the antenna. It's on the plan as a detail. It's an OSHA thing. They don't want you to climb it. They certainly don't want you to wrap your legs around it for a couple hours. They certainly don't want that. And it's about distance and how it propagates and how the ones around it propagate. And once all of that data is collected, where are you with the level that the FCC lets you be at? If it extends to 5% or if it extends to more than that, there is mechanisms where the next time someone looks at it, they'd take a look at it and they would go after the ones that are over it. So that's addressing his concern. I know that the industry itself is large, but specifically for small cells, we're using the term 5G. I don't like that term. It's just, I don't know how to explain it because it's a standard. It doesn't equate in my brain. It's a densification of specific areas, 4 or 5 block radius that need a puff. And that puff is coming out of these low bandwidth, low energy antennas that are helping, say, 1 bar become 3 bars, or 2 bars become 4 bars. That's the way I like to explain it. So I think I've addressed these reports.
Mr. George, I'm running into somebody else's time on the meeting, the next meeting. So we are going to meet again soon. I would ask you to bring me any data you have that proves these things are safe. And I've asked the lieutenant to give me whatever he can get, and my colleagues to get me whatever they can get. And so then we'll make an informed decision after we have all this and we've analyzed all of it.
Very good.
But
Thank you
I
very much,
appreciate
Mr.
your
Chairman.
time. Thank you. So that will end. We will obviously keep this in committee. We will deal with it at the next zoning subcommittee. So we are adjourned for this zoning subcommittee. Thank you.